coming to provide some insight into this question. You see, one of the reasons why we organized this forum on community radios in Cameroon was to give us an opportunity to evaluate the content in these community radios. Well, evaluating the content may just be an aspect of it, but for that content to be made consumable, we must also look at the technical aspect of the community radio. So all this went into consideration. Now, when we carried out this evaluation about 2 years ago, again I was doing the report, the evaluation, we came out with the conclusion that we will not only reinforce the community radios technically, but we have to enable them to develop quality resources, that is, the human resources. The animators must be well trained on how to build up programs, radio programs, and also to give them an insight into how these programs can be built. How can we consider a program? What do you need in order to consider a good program? You have to identify the needs of the population. You have to identify the target audience. You have to tailor your programs, the content, in such a way that it will suit the needs of the population. Because all this put together will probably lead the communities to either moderate their habits or change their behaviors and attitudes towards certain practices in the communities. Okay. So, in perspective, what we have in hand is we want to reinforce the community radios, not only technically but content-wise. And this is the reason why we built up, mounted a big project on which we are soliciting funding from the African Development Bank. And once this is achieved, focus will be more on content development. Because we had an experience once when we had a training session in Bamayo. This training session, from the discussion we had, from some of the tapes we listened to, some of the records we listened to, I realized that community radios uses or use the airwaves to educate students, pupils on what they are being taught in class. Some sort of rehearsal, especially during the period approaching examinations.
Great.
And I thought this could be a very good case in point to be disseminated in other regions where the initiative has not been taken consideration of. Suspect. If the animators could invite a teacher on the air to rehearse or to repeat some of the lessons he teaches in class on their own spare time and listen to these programs, will help them reinforce their understanding of what they have learned in class. It's quite true. Some people will say the forum is not well adapted. I say no. You don't say the forum is not well adapted. It depends from what point of view you are looking at it. But I think it's a way to reinforce learning. And so this is what we are trying to focus on when we have this funding. More of our concentration will be on content development. And before we focus on what type of content to build, we must carry out a need assessment of the local population. Of course, and this we can only do alone. We have to bring in the stakeholders, our partners, even colleagues of the other sectors, because the radio will not only be used only for education, it could be used also for cultural cultural development. There are cultures in some areas where people no longer have the mastery over. In my area, there are certain cultural values that I cannot understand. I cannot put into practice. But if we could use, or can use the medium to translate these cultural values, I think it will be a very good thing. It will enable us to preserve our culture and even transmit them to future generations. Likewise in the education. Likewise in the sciences. For example, in the north, my former colleague who used to be here organized a seminar in the north, where they have what they call the circuison. There are some special bags. They will boil rice using those bags, and they will put up the gas or the flames, but they would attach it and keep it. See, this rice will stay hot for a very long period of time and can be served at any hour in a good state. This not only helps them to fight against deforestation, because they constantly cut trees, provoking deforestation. It also helps them now to minimize their resources, their basic resources or environmental resources. So what we are now trying to look at in perspective, try to develop capacity building towards better content for community radios, because the problem they have is how to keep in place the animators that they have. The communities are poor, they cannot pay or provide some basic
regular
remuneration for the animators. So the tendency is for the animators who are trained by UNESCO in most of the projects to seek better life elsewhere.
Yeah.
And once that keeps going, the tendency is not UNESCO, only UNESCO that is suffering in terms of expenditure, but the communities themselves.
And the
because
beneficiary station.
they tend to lose their animators and their resources. So the tendency is for us to look in the future how we could empower these community radios in order to enable them solicit resources from themselves, build up resources from themselves, and maintain the animators in place and encourage better production of programs, quality programs. And that's one of the aspects we've been trying to go through the IPDC to obtain just some seed funding to help some of these communities to provide good quality programs for their local communities. At least in the past we've received quite a good number of assistance from IPDC and also from our regular program to support some of these community radios to build up quality programs.